St. Alphonsus, The Religious State, Chapter 11, A Letter to a Young Student, Part 2. Whence it happens that the soul, at the sight of these truths, takes the most efficacious means to secure its eternal salvation, and rises above itself, as Jeremiah says, he shall sit solitary and hold his peace, because he hath taken it up upon himself. Lamentations 3:28. There man disengages himself from earthly affections and unites himself to God in prayer, by the desire of belonging to Him altogether, by offering himself to Him, and by other repeated acts of sorrow, love, and resignation, and thus finds himself raised so high above all created things that he laughs at those who so much prize the goods of this world, which he despises, knowing them to be too little and too unworthy of the love of a heart created to love the infinite good, which is God. It is certain that he who comes out of the exercises comes out of them much changed, and better than he was when he began them. It was the opinion of St. John Chrysostom that retirement is a great help towards the acquisition of perfection. Therefore a world is consequence of the impression made on him by that sentence of the gospel. What doth it profit a man if he gain the whole world and suffer the loss of his own soul? Matthew 16:26. A certain student, in consequence of one single sentiment on death suggested to him by a good religious, changed his bad life and became virtuous. St. Clement was encouraged by another consideration on eternity suggested to him by his mother, namely, the thing that we contend for is life eternal, and joyously suffered for Jesus Christ many torments inflicted on him by the tyrant. To conceive, then, a just idea of the fruit which the exercises produce when performed in solitude, read a book on this subject, if you have one, and see there the stupendous conversions occasioned by them. I will here mention a few. Father Maffei relates that there was in Siena a priest who gave public scandal. This priest, having made the exercises with a missionary who passed by accident through Siena, was not only converted and made a good confession, but on a certain day, whilst a great number of people were present in the church, he went into the pulpit weeping, and having a cord round his neck, and asked pardon for all the scandals that he had given, and after this he went away to become a Capuchin, and died as a saint. On his deathbed he confessed that for all the graces he had received he was indebted to those spiritual exercises. Moreover, Father Bartoli relates of a certain German knight who had given himself up to all kinds of vice, so far as to give his soul to the devil by a written contract signed with his own blood, that having afterwards performed the exercises, he conceived so great a sorrow for his sins that he fainted several times, and thenceforth he continued to lead a penitential life as long as he lived. Father Rossignoli relates that in Sicily a son of a certain baron became so debauched that his father, after having tried without effect many means to correct him, was obliged to put him in chains in a galley with the slaves. But a certain good religious, moved by compassion, went to see him, and by his winning manners and good advice induced him to meditate on certain eternal truths in the galley where he was confined. The young man, having done so, wished to make a general confession, and showed such a change in his conduct that his father, with much joy, received him again into his house, and never afterwards had any reason to be displeased with him. Another youth of Flanders, having made the exercises and being converted by them from a most wicked life he had been leading, said afterwards to his companions, who were wondering at this, "You wonder at me, but I tell you that the devil himself, if he could make the exercises, would be brought to penance." Another, a religious, but of such bad conduct that he had rendered himself insupportable to all, was by his superior sent to make the exercises. Being about to leave, he jestingly said to his friends, "Keep your beds ready to touch my body when I come back." But after the exercises he was so much changed that he became an example to all the other religious, who seeing this change wished to make them also. Certain young men, seeing other young men, their friends, going to make the exercises, wished to accompany them, not to profit, but to jest afterwards in their conversations about their devotions. But exactly the contrary happened, for during the exercises they were filled with such compunction that they all began to sigh and weep, confess their sins, and change their lives. I could adduce such facts by thousands, but I shall relate only one more, that of a nun in the monastery, who pretended to learning, but led a very imperfect life. This nun began, though with a bad will, to assist at the exercises that were given in the monastery. But the first meditation she made on the end of man made such an impression on her that she began to weep, went to her spiritual father, and said to him, "Father, I wish to become a saint," and this promptly. She wanted to say more, but the tears prevented her from speaking. Having then retired to her cell, she made a writing by which she gave herself entirely to Jesus Christ and began to lead a penitent and retired life in which she persevered until death. But when we see the esteem in which the exercises have been held by so many holy men, this, if we had no other reason, should be enough to make us prize them highly. St. Charles Borromea, from the first time that he made the spiritual exercises in Rome, began to lead a perfect life. St. Francis de Sales confessed that it was to the exercises he owed the beginning of his holy life. Father Louis of Granada, a holy man, said that his whole life would not suffice to explain the knowledge of heavenly things he had received in making the spiritual exercises. Father Avila called the exercises a school of heavenly wisdom, and wished that all his spiritual children should go to make them. Father Louis Blosius, a Benedictine, said that we should give to God special thanks for having, in these latter times, made known to his church this treasure of the exercises. But if the exercises are of a great help to persons in every state or condition, they are of an especial help to him who wishes to make the choice of the state of life he should embrace. For I find it stated that the first end for which the exercises were instituted was that of making the choice of a state of life, because upon this choice depends the eternal salvation of each one. We cannot expect that an angel from heaven should come to assure us of the state which, according to the will of God, we should choose. It is sufficient to place before our eyes the state we think of choosing, and then we should consider the end we have in view in that choice, and weigh all the circumstances of the case. This is the principal reason for which I wish you to make the exercises in silence, namely, for making the choice of the state of life. When, then, you have entered upon the exercises, as I hope you will, I beg of you to follow the advice I am going to subjoin. Number 1. The only intention that you should have in making these exercises is that you may know what God will have you to do. And therefore, in going to that solitary house, say within yourself, "I will hear what the Lord God will speak in me." Psalms 84:9. I go to know what the Lord shall tell me and what he wishes from me. Number 2, besides, it is necessary that you have a determined will to obey God, and to follow without reserve the vocation he shall make known to you. Number 3, it is moreover necessary that you pray earnestly to the Lord, that he may make known to you his will, namely, in what state of life he wishes you to live. But remember that in order to obtain this light, you should pray with indifference of mind. He who prays to God to enlighten him on his state of life, but does so without this indifference, and instead of wishing to conform to the will of God, wishes rather that God should conform to his own will, is like a pilot who feigns to will, but indeed wills not that his vessel advance, since he casts the anchor and then hoists the sail. God does not enlighten or speak to such a person. But if you will supplicate him with this indifference and the resolution to accomplish his will, he will make you see clearly the state that is best for you. And if you should then feel any repugnance to it, you should place before your eyes the hour of your death, and reflect what state you would in that hour wish to have embraced, and then embrace that. Number 4, take with you your house of retreat a book containing the meditations which are commonly made during the exercises. Read these meditations, and let them be, instead of sermons, reflecting on them for half an hour as well in the morning as in the evening. Take also with you the lives of some of the saints, or some other spiritual book out of which to make your reading, and these should be your only companions in solitude during the 8 days. Number 5, it is also necessary in order to obtain that light and to hear what the Lord will speak to you, to avoid every distraction. Be still and see that I am God. Psalms 45:11. To hear the divine voice, we must cease all intercourse with the world. To a sick man no remedies will be of any use if he does not take them with the proper precaution, as avoiding exposure to the cold air, unwholesome food, or too much application of mind. In the same manner, in order that the exercises may be useful for the health of your soul, you must remove hurtful distractions, such as receiving visits from friends, messages from without, or letters which are sent to you. St. Francis de Sales, when he was engaged in the exercises, laid aside all the letters he received and did not read them until after the exercises. It is also necessary to read no books of amusement, and not even of study, for then we ought to study only the crucifix. Therefore have in your room none but spiritual books, and reading in them, read not for curiosity's sake, but only for this one end, namely, to decide on the state of life which God will make known to you as the one He wishes you to embrace. 6. Moreover, it is not enough to avoid distractions from without, you must also avoid those from within. For if you should there deliberately allow your mind to think on the things of the world, or of study, or the like, the exercises and the solitude will be of little use to you. St. Gregory says, "What avails the solitude of the body if the solitude of the heart is wanting?" Peter Ortiz, an envoy of Charles V, wished to go to the monastery of Monte Cassino to make the exercises. Having arrived at the door of the monastery, he said to his thoughts what our Lord said to his disciples, "Sit ye here till I go yonder and pray." Matthew 26:36. Thoughts of the world, wait here outside. Having finished the exercises, I shall again see you, and we will again walk together. Whilst one is engaged in the exercises, he ought to make use of the time only for the good of his soul, and without losing any moment of it. Finally, I beg of you to recite, during the exercises, the following short prayer. My God, I am that miserable one, who in the past have despised Thee, but now I esteem and love Thee above everything, nor will I love any other but Thee. Thou wouldst have me belong entirely to Thee. To Thee I will belong entirely. Speak, O Lord, for Thy servant heareth. 1 Kings 3:10. Let me know what Thou wishest from me, and I will do all, and let me especially know in what state Thou wishest me to serve Thee. Make the way known to me wherein I should walk. Psalm 142:8. During the exercises, recommend yourself also in an especial manner to the Divine Mother Mary, praying her to obtain for you the grace perfectly to accomplish the will of her Son. And do not forget, when you make the exercises, to recommend me to Jesus Christ, as I will not omit to do in a particular manner for you, that He may make you a saint, as I heartily wish, in which sentiment I protest myself to be your most devoted and obliged servant. End of chapter 11.